The next category in our general location criteria is demographics. And in this, our first topic we're going to take up is probably almost as important as finding water on your property, and that is to find an area that has a low density, low population density. Let's go to our first map on that. Population density by county, which is put out by the U.S. Census Bureau. This map shows the population per square mile by county. The darkest colored counties are the most heavily populated. Okay, let's look at the next map that shows the population distribution for the United States in the year 2000. This map is made up of tiny dots. Each tiny dot represents 7,500 people. Now, we're not talking about the conglomeration of dots in the metropolitan areas. People are where the lights are. Here is Atlanta, and now you can see Dallas and Fort Worth, and now Minneapolis, St. Paul, and now Denver, and Seattle. Now, usually the fewer the people in an area, the more liberty and freedom you will experience and have in that area. Our next category under demographics is reasons why high population density means instability in a crisis. Under this heading, we could put excessive specialization. This means there could be a presence of highly specialized and trained people that might not have the ability to take care of their basic needs in a crisis. Also, you could have massive food and water requirements. Now, that's self-explanatory, but let's take it a step further. The authorities could use that to manipulate and control people, and that could be a disaster. Next is financial dependence. Most of us buy our basic needs and supplies with money, especially those in the cities, while those in the country can raise part of their basic needs, maybe even a good part of their basic needs. So in a crisis, those in the city would be in a terrible bind. There would be bank runs, and that would be just the beginning. Next is the potential for massive epidemics due to the increased contact with others. Next would be the potential for impaired movement or no movement at all. You know, we had a cousin in California who used to be on the sheriff's department in a certain county, and he told us about the time years back when California had a massive blackout. He said the interstates were absolutely jammed. You couldn't even go anywhere. He said the U.S. highways were almost as bad. You could hardly go anywhere on those. And then the state highways were almost as bad as that. And it wasn't until you got down to the tertiary or the county roads that you could really start moving around on. A friend 10 to 15 years ago once mentioned he was stationed in a city that had a population of about 150,000 people, and he was in the National Guard, and he mentioned the plans that the Guard had to completely cordon off that city within about 20 minutes in time of crisis. So folks, if the Guard had plans to do that for cities of 150,000 people 10 to 15 years ago, think what they're planning on doing now, especially with the presence of Homeland Security. Maybe this is a good time to ask the question, how far away from the city should we relocate? Friends, even researchers who have studied what would most likely happen during times of crisis and civil unrest have recommended that you locate your home not less than one tank full of gas away from any major city. A word to the wise should be sufficient. Avoid states with over 100 people per square mile, preferably below 50 people per square mile. But if you get down to 20 or below people per square mile, it could be pretty hard to find work, especially if your job depended on a population base. Look for an area that tends to be more self-sufficient in supplying life's necessities, such as farmlands, and especially areas that have sufficient water. Water is crucial. Look for a state that has lower taxes. And like I said before, a state that has fewer regulations. But beware, a state that has no income tax could indicate that they make up for it by having higher sales tax and or property taxes. Look at the local regulations in the area that you're interested in. Look at the building codes. Look at the planning and zoning departments. Hopefully they won't have a planning and zoning department. The poorer counties a lot of times don't even have those departments.